Hey everybody, welcome to the show. Round the Nation right here. Jeff Waldorf here with you for this show on Wednesday. God, I almost sounded like a bit like Purred Happily right there. You are watching this show, which you are currently watching. The weird Parks and Rec reference, for those of you who got it. Weird mood today, but fun show. We have Donald Trump on Puerto Rico. We also have the Republicans are starting to panic now that Donald Trump has set again his sight set once again on repealing Obamacare. Oh, here we go again. Although this time there will be no John McCain to do this, so interesting. I can't believe he's going after the Obamacare again. No, let's try this. Let's try this for the third time. Okay, let's try. Even though we have absolutely no plan, let's try it again. You're going to love the Republican reaction to that, of course. I might have just given it away, but then we have the internet versus Betsy DeVos. That's fun. I'm going to read you some excellent responses to Betsy DeVos's new budget that eliminates a lot of money from the Special Olympics. So, oh boy. Then we also have Barbara Lee going after Betsy DeVos for, one, cutting funding for Special Olympics, but also going after, or I should say Betsy's budget, not dealing with school segregation. So, that's an interesting segment we're going to talk about. And then, of course, AOC goes off on people against the Green New Deal. So that's another great segment. I can't wait to do that. It's probably one of my favorite stories. So we've got some fun on the show today. Now, before I get into it, please like and share the stream if you haven't already. That helps us out greatly. Another way to help us out, of course, is to become a member. So you can become a member a couple of different ways. You can become a member through YouTube by hitting the join button. It's right on the page, super convenient. Or the other way is to go through our Patreon page, patreon.com/TYTNation. We have several different tiers of memberships, of course. All membership above $1. So there's a $3 membership that's level 2. You get the full show free, no ads. Kind of cool. So if you want to just stream the show, and then of course we're also trying to get approved by Apple, so we can throw up the show on iTunes, and so people who are patrons can also get the podcast version of the show. So that's fun. All right, and well, it's not just patrons that'll get podcast version. Everybody will get the podcast version, but maybe I'll just throw up like a download link that you can download the show directly. I'll figure all that stuff out, but we will have some fun stuff for the members. So to thank you guys for supporting the show. You want to support the show, go to patreon.com/TYTNation. And then let me give you some shout-outs here. Joseph Terry, Vaughn Jenkins, Julian Davis, Kathy Healy, Michael DeVos, Rebecca Babcock, Tira Omalad, the Goddess Guru. That's the full name. Mike Samuel, Raphael Chiche, I'm not sure, Raven Mollisey, Alexandria Burkanovich, E. Peltier III, and Layla Pochop. So I know I've said probably a couple of those names several times, but we're just getting through the list. So if you haven't heard your name in a while, or if you signed up, don't worry, I'll be getting to it. There's just a lot of names on here that I'm going to get through. Okay. Interesting stuff, though, before I get into the stories. So, there's a lot of conversation going on Twitter, interestingly enough, about this new budget that's going on that CNBC put out. Now, CNBC, every once in a while, just like the McDonald's budget, puts out just something completely and utterly ridiculous. So, and what I mean by that is that they usually go with oh, this is a college student that makes $100,000 a year and lives with his 5 friends. and pays this much, and that's how he was able to pay off all of his student loans, or not take out student loans at all and pay for a 4-year degree. Oh, that's fantastic, but, in the real world, it doesn't always work out that way. And this time, there was somebody with, a $500,000 budget, takes 2 vacations a year? I mean, that's ridiculous. And, how do these people survive on $500,000 a year? I tell you what, I actually am considered lower middle class, though for most of my life working class, which is anywhere from $20,000 to $30,000 a year. So why don't you create a budget for those people, the majority of Americans, especially who can't afford a $400 emergency? We could really use that. I mean, it would be great if they could actually point out a budget where things actually work out. But they don't do that. You know why? It's because, for one, they don't know anybody making under $100,000 a year. Let's be honest about that. And for two, they would find out how really difficult it is to be poor. And so once they start crunching the numbers, be like, wait a minute. There doesn't seem to be enough money here to go around for all the stuff that people need. Uh-oh. So, hey, before I get into it, there's a super chat just popped up. Patrick Segman says, I survived thyroid cancer. Thanks for your support. Hey, that's great, Patrick. That is amazing. That's, for one, thank you. And for two, congratulations. That is awesome. That's great. Thank you for sharing that news with us. And I'm glad that I'm able to do that. That I'm able to share that news with everybody, because that's amazing. That's amazing. So, awesome. I love getting good news. All right. Anyway, so we'll go from really good news to, of course, the normal depressing stuff that we do. Okay. So President Trump believes that we were a bit too generous when it came to aiding Puerto Rico. Now, Donald Trump apparently told Republicans at a closed-door luncheon on Tuesday that the aid for Puerto Rico was, quote, way out of proportion to what Texas and Florida and others have gotten. This according to Marco Rubio, who was in the meeting, who came out later and was like, look, Florida needs to aid, Texas needs to aid, these states that got hit with these massive hurricanes, we needed the aid. And there's another aid package, of course, that's looking to go through Congress that a lot of Republicans support. But when it came to the issue of Puerto Rico, Donald Trump was not interested in that. No, I'm not going to give you more money for Puerto Rico, or to give you guys enough. So now the thing is, according to Rubio, Trump supports a $600 million package to deal with food stamp shortfalls in Puerto Rico. Okay, well, that's at least one thing that's okay. Hey, great, at least you're not starving them, but says that he is opposed to more generous terms for delivery of disaster aid money and funding to rebuild antiquated water systems and make them more resilient to future storms. So now, wait a minute here. Puerto Rico has had a problem with old and broken down infrastructure, right? Part of the reason that the storms in Puerto Rico were so damaging to the infrastructure is that their infrastructure was old and more easily prone to hurricane damage, right? So it was already antiquated, which, add on to the disaster of being hit by a massive hurricane like Maria, it just compounded the damage. And so why would we not want to invest and fix that and make it better so that the next time there is a hurricane, the humanitarian disaster isn't nearly as bad, or we don't have a humanitarian disaster following another superstorm like Maria. Why wouldn't we do that? It makes logical sense. We invest to make things better. But look, I know. We make we know the answer already. And we've seen it before, right? Now, in addition, of course, to patting himself on the back after his amazing help in Puerto Rico, that we had 10,000 workers and they were all fantastic and tremendous, when actually his response was horrible. But we get into more of why, other than just his ego, of course, not admitting that he actually didn't do the greatest job and that he could have done better. We get into what he says. Now, Trump tweeted this. He said that Puerto Ricans, and actually he said this, Puerto Ricans wanted everything to be done for them when it should have been a community effort. 10,000 federal workers now on island doing fantastic jobs. And he also said, now I hate to tell you, Puerto Rico, but you're throwing our budget a little out of whack. I hate to tell you, Puerto Rico, but me having to spend money on you just to help you guys after a massive storm, throwing my budget out of whack. I mean, how dare you? Now I'm going to have to spend relief money and add money. Come on, man. I don't want to have to do that. You're ruining everything. And of course, look, there's the implication that Puerto Ricans are less deserving and are lazy. I'm not even convinced that he knows that Puerto Rico was part of America. It is part of America. It's American territory. And the people there are American citizens. But Trump is like, oh, they're Latinos. They must be part of somewhere else. They're actually not part of America. Ridiculous. Not only that, but Trump also implied that it was Katrina that's a real disaster, but Maria was not a disaster. And of course, official government reports at the time had the death toll about 46. It actually came to a much larger number, around 3,000, 4,000 people that were killed. Not only from the storm, but subsequent effects from disease, lack of power and healthcare, etc., lack of clean water. And a lot of that has to do with, of course, Trump's response to it. So, but no, Katrina, real disaster. Maria, not real disaster. Here, have some paper towels. They're tremendous, very, very soft paper towels. And of course, his excuse is, well, it's hard to get aid to the country, or I'm sorry, to the island, because it is an island surrounded by water, big water, ocean water. That is a real quote from the President of the United States. So, but as far as Maria not being a real disaster, no. Here's the thing: both Katrina and Maria were both unfathomably horrible. Maria killed thousands of people. So did Katrina. In reality, you should not be comparing which storm was worse. Okay, like which disaster is more of a disaster and therefore deserving of more attention. I mean, that reaction is sickening. And of course, we know why. It's because they're Latinos. Majority Latinos. And I think that's why he is not authorizing more aid despite the complete disaster on the island. And again, going back to his ego as well. I mean, this aid package, by the way, this is supported by a lot of Republicans. It cleared a procedural hurdle in the Senate by a 90-10 vote. 90-10. And you've got big Republicans on this on the side of this package. According to The Guardian, the measure has wide support from both Democrats and Republicans and is backed by Trump loyalists, such as the Georgia Senator David Perdue and the North Carolina Senator Tom Tillis, whose states were slammed by hurricanes last fall. So, Perdue had said, quote, just at the time when harvesting was starting, Hurricane Michael hit and crops were completely destroyed across most of our state. Now, look, us progressives, we look at that and it's like, we want to help. I don't care that you're a red state. I don't care that you're a blue state. I don't care. Let's help you already. Let's get, let's get you the aid that you need, and we'll help you get back on your feet. Now, a lot of these Republicans feel a little bit differently. I believe I remember maybe it was Ted Cruz doing some sort of ridiculous filibuster to prevent Hurricane Sandy aid from going to New York. Well, I mean, it doesn't affect me. But now, of course, when the Republicans, when they are affected, they're like, oh, no, we got to pass the aid package. Yes, even if it includes a lot of aid to Puerto Rico, of course. Because as long as we get ours too, I mean, that's all I care about. Okay, look, again, let's help everybody, because I don't know if you know this, but we are old, the United States. We're all supposed to work together. Now, Democratic lawmakers are asking for more Puerto Rico aid, according to The Guardian, and that may end up getting a little bit more resistance. I'm not sure how much. I don't know. But look, they need to get that aid. Yes, we should absolutely aid Puerto Rico. Again, they are a territory of the United States. So, now, I want to give you another piece of information here from the article, which shows how bad it was in Puerto Rico. They said that the lack of leadership and coordination combined with delays in meeting the basic needs of the island more than 18 months after receiving a presidential disaster declaration has left far too many children and elderly citizens in unhealthy and unsafe conditions, families in severely damaged homes, and communities without adequate infrastructure to sustain a decent quality of life. And that's actually a quote from Patrick Leahy and Chuck Schumer, sending that to the White House. And they're absolutely right. But Trump, right now, saying, no, we already helped them enough. They got too much. We were too generous. Ridiculous, man. Over 3,000 people were killed. It's an absolute disgrace that they are still suffering and struggling in the wealthiest nation on earth. But as usual, it comes down to Donald Trump's ego and his racism. Just shut up and help them, you monster. Come on. How hard is it? Okay. Now, I forgot to program that in. Okay? Whoops. Okay. Now, recently it was reported that President Trump is looking to have a second go around against the ACA. Trump's Justice Department is now going all in an effort to strip the entire law based on the interpretation or the ruling of one court justice. Now, basically, this all has to do with the elimination of the individual mandate, and they're trying to make a constitutional argument based on, well, if you don't have the mandate, if the mandate is unconstitutional, then the entire law should be scrapped. And that is now the Republican, or at least the Trump administration position. So this would be, another attempt to eliminate the ACA, which would, of course, end protections for pre-existing conditions, and subsidies, eliminate the Medicaid expansion. It would put millions of Americans in actual jeopardy. It would get rid of millions of people's health care. So, naturally, there are Republicans in Congress that are like, oh, hold on, wait a minute. Maybe we shouldn't do this. Now, of course, they have to go anonymously, because if you actually try to defend the ACA, as a Republican, you're going to get pilloried, you're going to get destroyed. So, this is one anonymous GOP senator that was speaking with Politico. He said, quote, "I want nothing to do with this," said the senator, who was described by Politico as, quote, scarred from the GOP's multiple failed efforts to repeal and replace Obamacare. Don't do it again. Don't do it again. We already had this fight. I'm not interested in this fight. Why are we having this fight again? It's because Donald Trump can't help himself. He's like, okay, now I've survived the Mueller report. And so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to use what political capital I have. You know what? I'm giving him too much credit. I don't think he understands what political capital is. But anyway, no, now that I don't have Mueller investigation anymore, now I'm going to focus on destroying Obamacare. Because, A, I ran an entire election. The Republican Party has been running on getting rid of the ACA since 2010. Now, what they didn't expect to do is they didn't expect to win in 2016. They didn't expect Donald Trump to beat Hillary Clinton. So they had no plan to repeal the ACA and replace it with something. In fact, the Republican plan was, we liked it just fine before the ACA. Oh, all right, but fine, you guys like pre-existing conditions, and if we get rid of those, stuff that people actually like, then our voters are going to rebel. And then we're going to end up losing more elections. So we got to come up with something. And what they came up with was actually much, much worse than anything, really. Because again, I've explained this before, is the ACA is basically the Republican plan. Okay? That was created by the Heritage Foundation, put into an effect on a state level in Massachusetts by none other than Mitt Romney. So that was their plan. And of course, an actual progressive left-wing plan would be to run on Medicare for all. And somewhere in the middle would be a public option, right? Now, I'm saying in the middle of those plans, in reality, a real centrist plan would be also to run on single payer because it actually works. But anyway, so Republicans now, they have no desire to jump back into this fight, especially since you had John McCain giving the thumb, the late John McCain, I should say, giving the thumb to the repeal and replace plan. After that, they're like, okay, we're not going to do that. We're going to go focus on other things. Why is Donald Trump bringing it back to this? Why? And they're trying to figure it out. Now, the Daily Beast also reported that the GOP lawmakers and operatives, they're not happy that Trump, again, wants to take a crack at bringing down Obamacare, despite the multiple failed attempts by the GOP over the last 2 years. Senator Roy Blunt told the Daily Beast that Trump didn't represent Republicans with any kind of alternative healthcare plan, because he has one, and he said that it would be unwise to assume that courts would simply overturn the entire law. Quote, I don't think you can really rethink healthcare until you know for sure whether Obamacare continues to be part of it or not. And I think we're ahead of ourselves to assume that the court would say that Obamacare is somehow no longer there. Do you think Donald Trump knows about that? Anything about that? Do you think he cares? No, he says Obamacare bad. Why? Because Obama. I don't like Obama. He's a black guy. And he's actually smarter than me. And he actually got better grades than me. Hey, you want to prove it, Donald Trump? Release your transcripts. Guaranteed, you were not as smart and did not get very good grades as you claim to have gotten. I could guarantee it. Release your transcripts. No, he can't handle that somebody who's black, smarter than him, more accomplished than him, and actually accomplished, I wouldn't say it's fantastic legislation, but it's better than what we had before. And a good stepping stone to now going forward towards single-payer healthcare a la Medicare for all. No substitutes, Medicare for all. So he can't stand it, though. That's why he's going after it again, because he has no other plan. Build a wall and get rid of Obamacare. The two things that he's wanted to do the most. And he's going to keep harping on those and doing nothing else. No, and then he did actually get tax cuts for himself and the rich, so that's complete. Now he's just got two more things that he wants to do to try and make it to the election in 2020. That's why he's doing this. And look, if he's successful, I don't think he will be, because look, a lot of legal experts are saying this is not the way to go after the law, but it's basically his last chance. And of course, it's a great way to campaign for the next election. So I guess it serves a dual purpose. Okay. Oh, no kidding. I'm going to have to read that comment when we get back after the break, because that's a fantastic comment. You guys are great. I love hearing from you when you comment on the stories. I love to read those kinds of comments. All right. So now let's go to the next story here. Oops. Now on Tuesday, Education Secretary Betsy DeVos decided to eliminate $18 million of funds from the Special Olympics, as well as a 26% cut in special education programs in schools across the country. Now, this is in a proposed budget, so the cuts aren't actually going to happen unless the budget gets through. And nonetheless, these cuts are incredibly deep to some very important programs. Now, she said of those cuts, quote, "We had to make some difficult decisions. We're not doing our children any favors when we borrow from their future in order to invest in systems and policies that are not yielding better results. I think the Special Olympics is an awesome organization, one that's supported by the philanthropic sector as well." Now, she's cutting all $18 million, eliminating the Special Olympics program, all that funding. However, that same budget gives $60 million to charter schools. Charter schools, look, I live in Michigan. Charter schools here have been nearly a complete and total failure. So it has not increased the level of education in children. In fact, they've actually, in a lot of places, have had worse results and have taken money from public schools. And so, pretty disastrous. And yet, that shows her priority, giving more money to charter schools, taking it away from actual schools and other programs that are actually deeply beneficial. Now, the internet, of course, had a response from this. But first, I want to read you a tweet here from Representative Mark Pocan, who went after her during that hearing. He said, in Betsy DeVos' budget, there are major cuts to programs like the Special Olympics. Secretary DeVos didn't know the number of kids who would be hurt by that cut, so I made sure she now knows that 272,000 kids are seeing their support taken away. Now, that's a good tweet, and it's a good exchange between Pocan and DeVos. Now, following that, the internet decided to take their turn, and I'm going to read you some tweets here. Gravalanche Policy says, what if ending the Special Olympics is part of a larger move to deplatform people with disabilities suffering from private healthcare's dominance and who aren't vulnerable to the neoliberal individualistic rhetoric of they don't work hard enough? Hashtag Medicare for all. Maybe. I mean, I didn't think of it that way. That is an interesting perspective. And I didn't think that maybe, hey, maybe they're right. Or maybe it's just she doesn't care about people with disabilities, doesn't care about racial and ethnic minorities, doesn't care about people who can't afford to go to school in their charter schools. Could also be that. But I think that's a great tweet. There's more. Johnny Bring Back Beth, in response to a Twitter account that hashtag Free Beth needs to come back. Bourgeois Alien, she actually got banned from Twitter for no reason. Well, anyway, they should definitely consider bringing her back. She said, or I should say he said, I suspect this is the case. People like DeVos see special needs and disabilities as drains in society. And I think in strict terms of dollars and cents and how they can get the biggest transfer of wealth to the rich as possible. I actually think that's far more likely. Sackbolt says, to better translate what Betsy DeVos is saying, education should only be offered to people that can pay for an education. Everyone else would be shining shoes on Broadway in New York City. Education will become like healthcare. People who can't afford it to educate their kids won't. There's more. Carrie R. Loves Soccer says, as an announcer for the LA Special Olympics Games in 2015, I worked firsthand with athletes, coaches, and managers from all over the world. Their energy, joy, and passion was inspirational to all of us. I'm so thankful for that opportunity. Shame on you, Betsy DeVos. Now, that just makes me think of a Trump quote on the Special Olympics, where he said something around the lines of, it's very difficult for me to watch. What's difficult about it? What I see is people who are striving and doing excellence when they have, they have had obvious, there are setbacks, right? And they have overcome those. And actually, I think they're all better athletes than me, to be honest with you. Definitely better athletes than Donald Trump, and have achieved far more in their life than someone like Trump and someone like Betsy DeVos, who's basically just been given all of her money. So I would much, much rather have a lot of that money or all that money going to the people in Special Olympics. Because you know what? Those people are much, much better people than Donald Trump and Betsy DeVos. That's for sure. Or a lot of these rich D-bags that don't actually add anything to the economy or add anything to the culture or add anything to America. All right, more. Summer Rose Wells says, Betsy DeVos, the spawn of Satan. Those kids look forward to the Special Olympics. What is wrong with you? Yep. Carrie says, I have nothing to say, but Betsy DeVos and this administration are truly effing evil, effing soulless. Wagatwe Wanjuki says, Betsy DeVos has been wildly effective at pushing our government's white supremacist goals. Ableism is a part of white supremacy, right? Defunding the Special Olympics is absolutely a part of that. That's another interesting perspective that I didn't think of before. But yeah, look, there is a problem with ableism, right? Ableism is basically, look, it's something that we don't necessarily talk about, right? How we discriminate against those who seem to be less able than we are, instead of helping them fulfill their potential, which is what we should be doing. All right. Liz Plank says, Betsy DeVos donated a portion of her salary to the Special Olympics only to turn around and decimate the entirety of its funding as a special kind of plutocrat, savior, ableist BS. Oh, that's so good. Adam Best says, just when you thought the Trump administration couldn't possibly stoop any lower, Betsy DeVos and company cut all funding for the Special Olympics. There is no bottom. Well, that's what I've been saying all along. When it comes to the Trump administration, there's no bottom to that barrel. It just keeps going. How low can they go? More. Anya Alvarez says the Special Olympics is one of the organizations there. The work they do is incredibly important, meaningful, and life-changing. Absolutely. And it's ridiculous that she's trying to cut the funding. This administration, she continues, is filled with loads of heartless creatures with no moral code or sense of human decency. Max Burns says, Betsy DeVos just announced the Department of Education will end all funding for the Special Olympics under the new budget. And that's I think that's a tweet that everybody's referring to. T-Pain says, fun fact, Trump has spent 270 days at one of his golf courses. If he had spent only 250 days, it would pay for the Special Olympics. Wow. That is devastating. Not only that, Trump himself had paid $50,000 to create a golf simulator in the White House during the shutdown because he couldn't leave. Ridiculous. More. Tony Poznanski says, Betsy DeVos is trending, so that means one of 5 things. She did something horrible. She took away money from something meaningful and worthwhile, Someone is missing Dalmatians. A house fell on her. Or all of the above. That's an excellent tweet. Molly Jong Fast says, beside that, $18 million could be spent on a Secret Service protection for the president's large adult children or for golf cart rentals. Red T Raccoon says, overlooked in the Special Olympics outrage against Betsy DeVos is the 26% cut to state grants for special education. So not only compounding the complete and utter disregard for the disabled. There's more. Let's see. That's a continuation of the tweet from Raccoon. Says, my son couldn't read coming out of first grade. An IEP was put in place and he received special ed services. He now reads at grade level. We must fund special ed. Absolutely, we must fund special ed. Again, all they need is opportunity. I mean, that's it. And here, this budget denies them opportunity as it denies so many other people opportunity as well to get a better education. And so you're just cutting people off at the knees. There's more. Eden Clay says, putting Betsy DeVos in charge of education is like putting Cruella de Vil in charge of Dalmatian Rescue. That's great. Steve Marmol said, Betsy DeVos has a net worth of $5.2 billion. She could personally fund the Special Olympics with pocket change, but the joy she gets in cruelty is priceless. Finally, Tony Poznanski says, there's absolutely no good reason to cut funding for the Special Olympics except being a cruel and heartless piece of S. Congratulations, Betsy DeVos. I didn't think there was a place lower than rock bottom. You hit it. And that she did. The complete and utter disregard for humanity, for the least among us, from this administration, from Republicans, and from, I should say, a lot of wealthy people, is just unfathomable. How can you not care about people? How can you put your own wealth and privilege above helping other people? I know. I don't understand. Maybe they think they're better. Maybe they probably do. But in reality, the wealth doesn't make you better. It doesn't make you a better person. And it certainly doesn't make you worthy of admiration. In reality, excessive wealth should be frowned upon. People should look at you and say, why are you hoarding all that when you could be helping others, when you could be really helping society? And I don't mean from charity, which is a tax write-off. Okay? No, what I mean is actually helping people and actually giving a significant amount of what you have to help people. People like DeVos won't do that because they don't have anything in their hearts. Okay. All right. Let's take a break here. We'll come back. We got another Betsy DeVos story, which is fantastic. And then AOC takes Republicans to task over the Green New Deal. So you're going to love those stories. So leave your comments. I'll read some super chats after the break. And we'll come back and we'll finish out the rest of the show. So we'll be right back. Stay right here around the nation. Welcome back to the show. Around the Nation right here. Jeff Waldorf here with you. Okay. So I have a couple of comments here. Let's see. Let's read those. Both from members and non-members. Member here, the Searoth, says, someone did release one of Trump's report cards from his university. He damn near failed economics and did fail statistics. I'll have to verify that. But if that is, fascinating and not at all surprising. Then we have Asa Ko, who said, horrifying stories like this will only get worse in Trump's fascist cacostocracy. Oh, that's a hard word to say sometimes. And the Republicans' war state plutocracy, time for a French-style revolution. I think the whole purpose of doing these stories and getting the word out is so that we don't have to resort to that, since we still have a democracy. It is a flawed democracy, no doubt, and there is a lot of money in politics, but we can go over that, right, with people power, and then we can get money out of politics and actually return control of the government to people without having to kill people. So I'm nonviolent, right? So I don't like violence. You guys know that. I'm a peace-loving guy. And so I don't like war, and I don't like bloody revolution. So, and I'm really hoping that does not happen. And look, if we don't change course, you might end up getting your wish. And it's not a threat or anything to, people who are watching. That's just the course of history. Once it gets to a certain point where all the wealth is located at the top and the people are left with nothing, things get ugly. And I don't want it to get to that point. And I'm sure none of you do either. Sunglasses Girl says, I lost my engineering career because of my autism and ADHD. That's terrible. It's just, that's how we treat people with disability or who are different. We treat them terribly. As if, they're not people. And so we got to change that as well. And finally, Mary Ewan said, how do people like her happen? Referring to Betsy DeVos. Wealth and privilege, man. Wealth and privilege. When you get brought up thinking that your wealth has everything to do with how good you are of a person, how moral you are, and that's, of course, the ultra-right, they teach that, right? Well, your wealth is given to you by Jesus, right? God, because, well, you're such a good moral person, so you deserve that wealth. But what does that say about other people? It says, well, if you're poor, then you deserve being poor because you did something wrong. Then obviously you're not a moral person, you're not a good person, and you're not deserving of that wealth. And so why should we help you? Why should we give you government assistance? Why should we use our taxpayer money to support you when you're an immoral person, when you're a bad person? That's how a lot of these people view the world. I think it's social Darwinism. So, but anyway, it's a sad reality. Okay. Let's continue with, hold on here, with Betsy DeVos. As soon as I set this up, just got to set up the video clips here for a second. Let's see. Okay, now we can get to DeVos a second time. All right. So Betsy DeVos has been called to defend her 2020 budget to Congress. Now, in that budget, of course, she makes a lot of cuts. One, eliminating the entire budget for the Special Olympics. Now, she said that in making this budget, she had to make some very difficult decisions. Very difficult decisions, of course. It was very hard to cut the Special Olympics, but this doesn't work. This doesn't work. I mean, what are you going to do, right? Except that you're not actually supposed to get a monetary benefit from the Special Olympics. It's actually supposed to help people and make them feel better. I know, and increase their quality of life. Apparently, that's something that Betsy DeVos doesn't believe we should do as a society. Now, as far as trying to prioritize what decisions that she's going to make, well, she, again, cut $18 million from the Special Olympics, but gave $60 million in funding to charter schools. Overall, her entire budget, though, would cut about $7 billion worth of programs. Now, let me give you a couple of these programs. She would cut $1.2 billion in 21st century community learning centers. So, gone. That program is eliminated. She would eliminate $29 million in funding from the Arts and Education program, $840 million in federal supplemental educational opportunity grants, and $1.1 billion in student support and academic enrichment grants, among many other things. There was also help for, Alaskan natives and helping them get educated. So, now, just some of the programs that she wants to kill. As I said, $7 billion worth of cuts. Now, that did not sit well with Democrats, including Representative Barbara Lee. Now, Barbara Lee took a second opportunity to wreck DeVos over her budget, first taking her to task for those cuts in the Special Olympics program, and then for her failure to deliver paperwork proving that she is doing something about school segregation. Let's take a look.
Your cuts here specifically target students of color. It's unbelievable, low-income students. And I just have to say, Madam Secretary, you have zeroed out Special Olympics once again. I still can't understand why you would go after disabled children in your budget. You zero that out. It's appalling. I want to ask you a couple of things, which again reflects exactly what I just said. 2 years ago, I wrote into the language into the bill about school desegregation. The language asked for a report from your department in coordination with the Office of Civil Rights to submit to this committee detailing recommendations on how to address the adverse impacts of segregation, including Title VI school monitors, to ensure that every student has the opportunity for an equal education. Madam Secretary, this letter came, we wrote it June 7th. We've called, we've asked for this report, we've tried to reach you over and over again. We've never received a response. I wonder where this report is. Could you let us know when this report will be coming to the committee? It's about students of color, it's about school desegregation efforts.
Congresswoman, yes, I'm aware of that request and that report, and I know it's near completion, and I commit to you that we will get that to you as soon as feasible.
Madam Secretary, this is almost 2 years. We've been waiting. These kids deserve, and the school district deserve, an answer from our Secretary of Education. We can't wait 2 years to get a report on school desegregation from you. It shouldn't be that hard to do it.
Well, it shouldn't be that hard to do it. But, again, remember why Betsy DeVos is there in the first place. She is there to destroy public education. She is there to destroy help for students of color who actually need more funding, need more help, and disabled students. Again, she does not care about the disabled and does not care about people of color. She cares about straight, white, Christian families with money. That's the whole point. Again, shifting $60 million towards charter schools, to which, of course, charter schools, at least in Michigan, are unregulated and can teach religious fundamentalism. That's what this is. Now, Lee says, oh, no, I don't understand why you would do that to disabled people. Again, I just told you why. She hates those people. And she doesn't think that we should waste our resources on them. Or again, wants charity. Now, that's the thing. A lot of these right-wingers will be like, well, let's just have the private sector take over. We'll have charities and people will end up getting taken care of. That's not what happens. Charity, for one, never has enough. And for two, basically the end result of Betsy DeVos's, I guess, vision for the education system in America is the wealthy go to school, they get educated, while poor people either do not get educated or they get indoctrinated in their schools into more religion and don't actually get a real education. That's her plan, because that's who Betsy DeVos is. She was never there to help people, always there to destroy this system and to replace it with something that, I guess in her eyes, is akin to what God wants her to do. Okay. It's gross. All right. Moving on. We got one more story for you guys. See if we can get through it. Actually, no, not one more story. I forgot the AOC. Oh, okay. Well, I will edit in a sidebar later, apparently. Now, Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez attacked Republicans after their treatment of the Green New Deal. Now, this is after a congressman had referred to that plan, which is an ambitious plan to try to protect the environment and create millions of actual good-paying jobs in renewable energy. They called this plan, quote, elitist. Now, this is Representative Sean Duffy of Wisconsin, who said, quote, I think we should not focus on the rich, wealthy elites who will look at this and go, I love it because I've got big money in the bank. Everyone should do this. It's kind of like saying, I'll sign into the Green New Deal, but I'll take a private jet from D.C. to California, a private jet, or I'll take my Uber SUV. I won't take the train, or I'll go to Davos and fly my private jet. The hypocrisy. What a ridiculous statement. And of course, who better to call it out than Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who in this next clip absolutely destroys that argument. Watch.
But aside from that, when we talk about the concern of the environment as an elitist concern, 1 year ago, I was waitressing in a taco shop in downtown Manhattan. I just got health insurance for the first time a month ago. This is not an elitist issue. This is a quality of life issue. You want to tell people that their concern and their desire for clean air and clean water is elitist? Tell that to the kids in the South Bronx, which are suffering from the highest rates of childhood asthma in the country. Tell that to the families in Flint, whose kids have their blood is ascending in lead levels. Their brains are damaged for the rest of their lives. Call them elitist. You're telling them that those kids are trying to get on a plane to Davos? People are dying. They are dying. And the response across the other side of the aisle is to introduce an amendment 5 minutes before a hearing in a markup. This is serious. This should not be a partisan issue. This is about our constituents and all of our lives. Iowa, Nebraska, broad swaths of the Midwest are drowning right now, underwater. Farms, towns that will never be recovered and never come back. And we're here and people are more concerned about helping oil companies than helping their own families? I don't think so. I don't think so. This is about our lives. This is about American lives. And it should not be partisan. Science should not be partisan.
Damn. Preach, girl. Damn. As I said, as she just said, this should not be a partisan issue. We should actually be doing something about this because this means American lives. But instead, what do? We give oil companies more money. We give corporations more money. We give tax breaks, gigantic breaks for the rich. I mean, look, this greed is killing us. I mean, literally, you want to look at any problem in the country. Almost all of them have one thing at the center. Greed. I mean, greed. Flint, for example, right? Oh, the politicians want to save money so we can give more tax breaks to corporations and rich people. Well, who cares if lead leaches into water? We're supposedly paying less. We don't care about those people because, you know what? They're in Flint. They're not really driving economic, gains and all that stuff. So, we don't care about them. We don't care if they drink poisoned water. They're not going to amount to anything anyway because, And not only that, but corporations that save money when we have less regulations on pollution, right? So there's less regulations. They can pump more pollutants into the air. They don't have to take money out from their profits to control their pollution. No, they could just dump it into the rivers, or they can pump it into the air. And of course, you pump it in the air, you create asthma. You put it in the water, you give people health effects. Now, but of course, since those rivers don't run into wealthy neighborhoods, they don't care about that. More gun manufacturers, gun control, right? The gun manufacturers pay the NRA to spread propaganda against common sense gun reform. And they pay the politicians to not pass those reforms. So now we have people dying in the schools. Why? Greed. 2 people that were survivors from Sandy Hook literally took their own lives. And one of them was a father of someone who was killed in Sandy Hook. And he was followed around by right-wingers harassing them thanks to Alex Jones. Alex Jones purposely lies to his audience in order to make a buck. Spreads conspiracy theories. Why? Greed. Nearly every single thing wrong with this country comes down to greedy people who want to take more and more and more and add it to their pile. I mean, for God's sakes, people die in this country because they can't afford insulin. We have insulin. It's not like there's an insulin shortage. We have insulin. Mountains of it. But people die because they can't afford it. Because somebody's got to make an extra buck. Our system makes me sick. And so to call people who, are suffering, right, from the effects of climate change, which is projected to get worse, elitists, give me a break. No, you guys are the elitists. And I'm not talking about Republican voters. No. The Republican politicians sure are. Sean Duffy is. Mike Lee is. Donald Trump is. Hell, Donald Trump brags about being an elitist. But the people who are trying to protect the environment, the activists, the people that are having their homes destroyed by climate change, they're not the elite. They've either lost everything or there are people out there that try to prevent it from happening to others. The Republican Party is gross. They're sick people. They're surrounded by greed. They care only about themselves. And so, while right-wing media right now is looking at this impassioned speech by AOC, they're saying, oh, she's not only being elitist, but look at her. She's being so irrational. She's having a meltdown. Well, if you can remember just yesterday, this is what the Republicans were saying about the Green New Deal.
Tauntauns, Mr. President, is a beloved species of reptomammals native to the ice planet of Hoth. Now, while perhaps not as efficient in some ways as airplanes or as snowmobiles, these hairy bipedal species of space lizards offer their own unique benefits. Not only are tauntauns carbon neutral, but according to a report a long time ago and issued far, far away, they may even be fully recyclable and usable for their warmth, especially on a cold night.
That's the Republican response to the Green New Deal. It's a joke to them. All of the stuff that is happening and will happen for climate change, it is a joke to them. And it's not funny. It is affecting real people's lives. And if you're one of those Republicans that is, that doesn't believe in climate change, that doesn't believe in helping people that are affected by climate change, then you are part of the problem and deserve all the condemnation that will be aimed at you. Okay. That's it. That's all I got for you guys today. Thank you for joining the show. Thank you for watching. Please like and share the stream if you haven't already. I got to get out of here. So we're massively over time. TYT is currently on now. So I know a lot of you have already left, but those of you who have stayed, thank you very much. Okay, I'm out of here. Thank you guys. Love you. And remember, change begins with you. Good night, nation. We'll see you tomorrow.